Hello everyone, this is Crota giving you a shoutcast between OGS EnSnare and OGS the STC. So I'm just going to call him STC versus EnSnare, as I obviously cannot call him Terran, as this is obviously a Terran versus Terran Mirror match. So OGS EnSnare spawning at the 6 o'clock position as the red Terran player. Meanwhile, OGS STC, the STC, spawning as the red Terran over here at the 8 o'clock position. It should be pretty interesting to just keep up the production tab in this mirror match and see when they finally deviate from each other. Both players are playing on the same team, so both players playing on the same team should have similar build orders. There goes that standard 10 supply depot, most likely going to be followed up with a 12 racks, 13 refinery, and then a 15 orbital command most likely. So continuing the train up here, a supply depot I believe of STC was a little bit slower than EnSnare, so EnSnare is going to be able to train up that SCV a little bit earlier. But no, going for an 11 racks. So going for an early 11 racks while STC going for a standard 12 racks. Now in a Terran versus Terran mirror match, I do like to go for an earlier barracks just in case your opponent does try to 9 or 8 Reaper harass you. You can get that tech lab down, get that first Marauder, and then one Marauder is able to easily handle that Reaper. That Reaper only does 6 damage per attack against 125 hit point Marauder, and that Marauder has a range of 6, so even though the Reaper can outrun him in terms of speed, as soon as that Reaper tries to stop to attack an SCV, the Marauder can take an inside line and snipe him down. Back over here, we now have an early supply depot being placed down, so a 15 supply depot being placed down. That does mean that the orbital command will be a little bit delayed, or that barracks will not be just in time. Oh, so there it goes. Now upgrading to that orbital command, and yeah, really curious on why he got that early supply depot. That early supply depot really is not going to give him that much an advantage, as now OGS EnSnare waiting to get get that 100 gas in order to set up that early factory. So factory already coming into play. Marine now on that low ground, able to shoo away this SCV. SCV has no idea what is over here, and he doesn't even know if that's for sure his spawning location, just because he didn't see inside the ramp. If you remember Boxer play, Boxer had a couple Marines guarding a ramp, and then it was a fake starting location, but that's not the case here. OGS instead are now moving out with those 2 Marines, and may be able to get sight of that SCV. SCV no, able to escape and get away from there. There is now 2 Marines being trained up and queued up over here, 1 Marine over here as well, as this factory now up and nearing completion. Already only 10 units of time left. It looks like OGS or STC's factory is a little bit behind. We'll take, oh no, his factory is right in line as well. So both factories should be completing within just mere seconds of each other, as now Hellions being trained up. And this is very interesting in that no one has a tech lab yet. Both players are going off of the standard units, not training any tech labs. No, tech lab now going down because STC was supply locked for a moment, and then decided to stop training that Hellion. So he was supply locked for just a second, and now wants to continue to train up that SCV count, getting that extra supply depot, and we may be going into some sort of Banshee play. I do not see a Starport. Oh, Starport now coming in over here for EnSnare, so EnSnare may be trying to go for some Vikings. If EnSnare throws down a reactor, that would be a pretty strong and safe move, as now we have this factory now moving out. Starport's going to go ahead and land and start training that Banshee. So an early Banshee going to be most likely coming into play, and as now we have Marines and Hellions trying to get into a little bit of damage. And now, wow, nothing being trained over here. Now we are getting that Cloak, so Cloak being trained before that, before the Banshee is even being trained, and that's probably a little bit of an interesting maneuver, as now Marines trying to fight back over here. There are some units up on that high ground. Will they be able to see up? No, they are going to be able to take down this racks over here, but there is now a bunker in play. So STC getting that very early bunker and now training that Banshee. The Banshee cloaking ability takes 110 units of time, or 110 game seconds, so it is fairly difficult to try to train that up. Down goes that last Marine, and now another bunker going to be taken down as well. So this is going to be very, very difficult for STC to try to hold onto. This Banshee with Cloak is all that he really has, as he is now supply locked at 27/19. There is one factory sitting over here though, and now that he's at 27/35, can start training some Hellions out of here and trying to deal some damage over here. Viking now going to move out But that Viking gonna be able to intercept that Banshee very easily. The cloaking not yet done, and this is gonna be very bad news for that Viking. Viking was able to get a shot off onto that factory. What about that Banshee though? Will that Banshee come back home or try to snipe down some units? No, not able to catch up to that Hellion. So there is one Banshee in play. Viking trying to hunt it down. There is a reactor already on that starport in order to double train those Vikings and deal with this potential Banshee harassment. There already, the Banshee cloaked has been researched, will have cloak for quite some time, now taking down some of those SCVs, going after those units very easily, dealing 24 damage per attack. One Viking, Marines getting underneath it. That Viking may be able to get off one round of attack, but not two, as that Banshee needs to decloak, head back home, and try to repair itself. There is one Banshee sitting over here, going to be cloaking up. This Banshee decloaking, so it's going to be in and out with each of those Banshees. Another Banshee coming into play, and now with not enough energy for a scanner sweep, those three Vikings are not going to be able to deal any damage towards that Banshee. Banshee now hunting, trying to get more kills, using that shoot and scoot method, continuing to move around. That Banshee down to 2 energy, gonna be forced to decloak, and there it goes, decloaking. Vikings, however, unable to catch up to where that Viking or where that Banshee is, and now there's Hellion sitting over here. So STC still in this game. Do we have a Banshee being repaired? Yeah, the Banshee is being repaired now, gathering that energy back up. Banshee looking for those SCVs. SCVs were no longer mining for quite some time, and OGS and Snare being forced to now train a Raven, needs to train up a Raven very, very early, and now also trying to build an additional, start mining over here, saving up a lot of energy. Banshee coming in, a quick scanner sweep, revealing that Banshee. Vikings unable to catch that Banshee any longer, as that Banshee is cloaked, able to move away. Perhaps will get repaired, already low on energy, so that was not the Banshee. Oh, was it the Banshee that was sitting over here? It might actually be that Banshee that was sitting over there earlier. So there another Banshee coming in as well. So one Banshee at a time was folks soaking up so much of that and so much of that energy from those orbital commands. So really doing a great job. Banshee now dealing damage towards this orbital command, but now decloaking because it is out of energy, moving away. As another Banshee perhaps gonna try to come back in and get a couple quick hits, but will not be able to use that ability very effectively, as this Banshee cloaking for just a split second and now decloaking. Yeah, STC really miscalculated with that, being forced to pull back with those units, using that range of 6 and using it pretty effectively. Will it be able to not take down this last Marine? As and now another Banshee pulling away. Yeah, OGS and Snare completely miscalculated there, as now a Banshee of OGS and Snare, his own, is now trying to come in and deal damage to those Marines. There are no Vikings being trained. Now one Viking finally being trained, but STC now feeling the damage of one Banshee in the air. The Banshee also has cloak and a fair amount of energy, 85 energy. As soon as that cloak's activated, it will take 25, but that Viking still has a long way to train. And so that will take some time as these siege tanks now moving out. Will the siege tanks be able to deal enough damage as Banshees are moving out? So instead of going for a Raven, went straight into extra Banshees, and now out comes a Viking. Viking now fighting against this Banshee. Banshee now down to 32 hit points, now trying to chase it. That Viking may be able to get off one round of attack. No additional rounds of attack, and now a Viking and another Raven being trained up. However, this supply depot with an orbital supply drop gonna get taken down, and that is 16 food lost. There is now one Viking coming in. Marines trying to join in on that fight. That one Viking better land or it's gonna get destroyed. Destroyed in just a matter of seconds there. Now taking down one of those other units. Another Viking should be forced to pull back. Down it goes. So while both sides losing 2 Viking, those Marines on the ground doing their job, taking down that air-to-air unit, shooting it down, and now we have a 1 missile turret here and 1 missile turret here trying to absorb that damage. But now Banshees over here with these siege tanks. Siege tanks were trying to destroy this orbital command over here with the Banshee. And Banshees against siege tanks, Banshees against Vikings, just a lot of Banshee play. I must say this is much harder to track than just mass Marauder siege tank Viking play in the normal Terran versus Terran. So this is a Terran air battle. something that you don't really see every day. More missile turrets being laid down, and more gas needs to be harvested. Otherwise, STC will not be able to keep track in this air-to-air fight. Vikings and Banshees are very, very expensive units. Back over here, OGS and Snare perhaps repairing some of these SCVs. No, not repairing. Oh, there we are. Fairly repairing with these SCVs to heal up these Vikings and these Banshees. One Banshee with amazing 19 kills. That Banshee just is an SCV's nightmare when it is able to just do its job unhindered. Back over here, a starport now training up a Viking. We should probably see this barracks throw down a reactor and do a reactor swap. Really needs to get more of those Vikings in trying to combat those other Vikings and those other Banshees as well. Perhaps even getting Marines on the ground to deal with some of those Vikings that are in the air. Viking now moving out with siege tanks, and SCV getting blown to bits here as another Banshee flying away, very low on energy. One Banshee sitting over here, and now units just moving around the map in a game of chess, trying to figure out what exactly they want to do. A tech lab now being thrown down onto this barracks, and EnSnare just all of these units off of only what 5 production buildings, and still able to keep in this game and able to keep up with this macro. And sitting on about 700 minerals, should be able to train up some siege tanks, needs to get more gas. These refineries were, I believe, were they blown away? I'll check that in just a moment. I wasn't able to check those siege tanks, as we now have another command center being laid down here. No SCV, as it looks as though this Banshee was able to snipe down the SCV that was trying to build that. And no, these refineries were never ever up and operational, so that's the reason why OGS and Snare is so gas locked. More supply depots now being built up by these 3 SCVs, and also calling in an orbital supply drop. One Banshee cloaked next to one Banshee that isn't. So very, very interesting, just side by side, and they cannot fight each other. And now Vikings coming in to get in another kill as well. That Banshee was trying to take down these siege tanks over here, and I believe they're trying to get some Hellion action. And now we have one Banshee pulling away. There is a Raven by EnSnare, so EnSnare with a Raven and those Marines on the ground able to push back this Banshee. Banshee very, very low on energy, unable to get any real cloaks off. Over here now, Vikings chasing down this Banshee. Banshee down to 0 hit points, getting destroyed by the Lancer torpedoes of that Viking. Over here, siege tanks and Vikings moving out, as we have the harvester count 34 for STC versus EnSnare sitting at 41. So a quick scanner sweep revealing some of those units. An auto turret now being dropped. Siege tanks now on the ground trying to fight back against all of these Marines that are on the ground. Marines may try to get within that 0 range, and perhaps these Vikings should try to land. No, gonna go ahead and just take down another Viking, and these siege tanks are going to go ahead and de-siege and perhaps try to push out again. We have STC sitting over here. Are we transferring some? No, not transferring any SCVs over. Should start mining in just a moment and upgrading to an orbital command, as both sides taking an additional base. STC with these 4 Vikings, 1 SCV, gonna go ahead and try to repair. Siege tank's gonna go ahead and siege up down here and start blasting away at these marauders, at this barracks, training these marauders as an SCV continuing to repair. There are 4 Vikings in the air to try to offer a little bit of support. Marines sitting over here, and now trying to go after some of these marauders. Now we see EnSnare going into marauder play. A lot of barracks sitting on 5 racks, and now these siege tanks pushing in over here. Vikings continuing to push out. 1 Viking needs to be pulled back, as there is 5 Vikings here, perhaps to try to get repaired as well. So siege tanks, one of those siege tanks able to deal enough damage to take down this barracks down over here. Really, really far range, 13 range on those units. As these marauders moving out, perhaps to activate these Onaga watchtowers, most likely expecting some sort of expansion here. This siege tank blasting away at this barracks is going to deal a lot of damage. However, what happened to the rest of the siege tanks? Siege tanks now moving over here to the north side to try to protect this expansion from any marauders that may be coming in. Marauders now moving out, not even going into the main base here. Even checking out this expansion, as there's siege tanks coming around the corner and gonna go ahead and pressure this expansion. STC does not have any units here, however, so those marauders may be able to push in and deal significant damage. Stay tuned for part 2 of this replay between OGS EnSnare and OGS TheStC.